I want to call the meeting of the Opioid Settlement Fund Advisory Committee to order. The first thing I want to do is have us stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and one announcement under the Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F. This meeting is being recorded. The first order of business is we have three different speakers that are going to be presenting. First up is Detectives Michelle Donovan and Michael Chica from the Town of Westport Police Department. If you come forward. And they're going to be telling us about the COSIP program. And if you could clearly state what that means.
Absolutely.
For the general public, that would be great.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Donovan. I'm a detective at the Westport Police. So since 2019, we've been tracking reported overdoses in the town of Westport. We've been tracking them through an online program called SIMS, which stands for Critical Incident Management. Every county in the state, except for Suffolk County, is involved in this. And it is funded by the COSAP grant, which stands for Comprehensive Opioid Stimulant and Substance Abuse Program. So through that, Bristol County Outreach was created, which I'm just going to read you their mission statement. So, a law enforcement-led post-overdose outreach program that seeks to facilitate access to treatment for those struggling with substance abuse disorder and/or behavioral health issues, as well as offering support to families and friends. Do you want to just read to them what we do with the SIMS program, what's tracked?
Yeah, so every time we have an overdose or some sort of mental health episode where the police encounter them, whether it's our town or another town, where a Westport resident is involved, we track it through SIMS. So with SIMS, we track where the overdose occurred, the date and the time of the overdose, where the individual who overdosed lives, whether it's our town or a different town in Massachusetts, what type of opioid was used. We track if there was any attempted suicide, if Narcan was administered, what hospital the person was transported to, if there's any kids at scene, and then a brief narrative of what happened according to the police report, because we would typically take reports anytime we respond to an overdose. Like I said, it's with residents from our town, or other towns will alert us if a Westport resident overdoses in another town. We'll get a notification. That way we can follow up with them as well.
I do have some updated stats. I know that it was emailed out to you guys last week, but we updated it a little bit. So I'm just going to pass it out to everyone.
I'll pass it around.
So since 2019, the town of Westport has had 112 reported overdose incidents, 97 non-fatal, and 15 fatal incidents. So with this information, what we do as team members of the Bristol County Outreach is we go out with a clinician that is assigned to us through the COSAP program. Her name is Stephanie Cantave. She's a social worker. She's been working in mental health and substance abuse for over 25 years, and she's employed by the town of Easton. So through this grant, she's assigned to us, the town of Westport, and we go out and we do house visits. So based on the recent overdoses in town, we'll go out and we'll do between like 5 to 10 visits. It's like almost every month, sometimes every other month. And we'll provide them care kits. I brought a care kit to show you guys what is involved in it. So in these care kits, we offer them a pamphlet with local resources, 2 doses of Narcan, a first aid kit, tissues, and also fentanyl test strips. So this is a big thing, especially with college students who live in town as well. There's a whole instruction book on how to use it. So these have been super helpful. We've gotten a lot of good feedback from the town, from the houses that we've gone to. Because we show up after the fact, we're not there in an emergency situation. We're dressed in plain clothes like this, and they're more open to talk to us and, let us know what's been going on. And the clinician's really good at what she does. She gives them local resources. We're not there in like an intimidating manner at all, so we really enjoy doing it. This grant is going to be ending in the fall, so we're trying to see what we're going to be doing next as far as next steps. But so far, it's been really good. We've really liked it.
Did you say it's ending in the fall?
Yeah. Yeah,
Is there a
the
possibility
grant.
of
With the
renewal?
clinician.
No, if that's something we can talk about now, we can talk about later on in the meeting about that. Because I've done a little investigative work as to what we can do and what maybe we can bring to the table for the committee.
May I ask a question? I read in the throwaway newspaper about Dartmouth that only 15% of their Narcan incidents were in town. So they were 85% out of town residents. How does that map onto your data here?
Sure, so on the last page of this little packet, I've provided, so just strictly the Westport residents in 2019 through 2025. And then I also included that total number between 2019 and 2025. Just so you can see how it compares.
So that's, the whole chart is Westport residents, the top part is in town, and the lower part is out of town?
So the bottom part is the total amount of incidents. So that number 21 at the bottom of
Oh, I
2024,
had it flipped.
that's the total number of overdoses that we've responded to. Out of the 21 non-fatals, I should say, 13 of them have been Westport residents.
Got it.
The bottom is just out-of-town residents that we've responded to because they overdosed in town.
In
Got it.
our town.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
So that means that most of the, so that means like in 20, I can do the arithmetic, only 8 were out of town.
Correct, yep,
So it's different here than it is in Dartmouth.
yeah.
Would that be because Dartmouth has a college?
The college and a lot of
Possibly
motels.
motels.
Oh, the motels.
Yeah,
I'm sure most of them occur in the motels.
yeah,
Okay.
And they're probably out-of-town residents.
yeah,
that
they
stay
do,
there.
absolutely.
How about the reverse, Westport residents who have overdoses outside of Westport?
So those get reported to us as well through that SIMS program that I initially spoke about. And that's all tracked, and I can call up the PD and talk to a detective or whoever had logged that note. Be like, hey, what's the story with this? Are they still living at that address that you reported in that log note in the SIMS program? And they'll be like, yep, that's the address that they told us. Or they'll say, no, they're homeless in Westport or homeless in Fall River, but they reported their address as Westport. We still go to that address that they reported and see if they're there.
And then where do most of these events occur? At homes or in cars?
So
Or
that's a
what?
good question. It varies. I would say mostly
Homes.
residences, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very, very few times we go to the hotels for overdoses. Once in a while, but I would say mostly the residents.
Yep.
So like beaches aren't like a place
Not
where this
really.
happens? Okay,
No.
that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are people, well, probably not if someone called 911, so people not often alone in these situations? I mean, I know there's
They
this big
can be alone,
hotline.
but
they
get
can-
found in the next morning, a couple hours later by a family member that might come home later. But yeah, they're often not alone.
They are often alone when they overdose, and someone else finds them.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just had a question, 'cause you might have said it, but how long after their actual overdose do you actually step in? Is it 24 hours, 48 hours, or?
So it's typically within a week. That's typically our visit time. We try to get there within like the next couple days, but with the scheduling with the clinician who's out of the town of Easton, it's sometimes tough to schedule with her just because she's so far away and she does cover other towns as well. But we try to get there within a week. That's usually our response time.
She's a full-time clinician with the Easton Police Department. So she goes out with them all the time. So when she can fit us, and I think a couple other departments, she
Yep, Swansea.
goes with
Yeah,
them,
she goes to
Somerset.
Somerset, yep.
But she's primarily with the Easton PD.
So it sounds like it might be helpful if we had another clinician that could
Was
be
closer.
local. That
Yeah.
And we've started exploring that.
Okay.
And what's the drug of choice?
Fentanyl.
primarily or mixed with other substances?
So we've been seeing mostly fentanyl. We have seen recently a mix with crack cocaine, but it's primarily fentanyl.
How about xylazine? Are you seeing that in this town yet?
We haven't seen that yet, no.
Not yet.
Not that we know of.
And I don't know if anyone watches TV, but in the Pit series recently, they showed some college students who were vaping THC mixed with fentanyl, and there was a fatal overdose. Are there any examples of that?
So it was a few years ago, we had, I think he was a juvenile. He had overdosed on a vape pen, and it had fentanyl in it.
So but it's not a thing yet here.
It is, it's just not as common that, this data is all reported data, you know what I mean? Like, unless it's not reported to us, we don't know about it.
Some people have Narcan at home, family members have Narcan at home, they
Yeah.
Narcan, we never know about it.
Yep,
Yeah.
That
it's
happens.
a big thing.
I mean, in a way, that's good. but
Yeah.
it complicates seeing the big picture.
Absolutely,
That saves lives.
100%.
Narcan's also a temporary fix, it wears off after some time.
Right.
So it's important they get to the hospital and get more Narcan if they need it, or whatever they need to get the drug out of the system, because it's a temporary fix.
Right. So the fact that fentanyl is the primary substance suggests that these are not people trying something, that they're opioid users, since fentanyl is so strong. So they're, struggling with an addiction.
Right, yep.
So no Demerol, no Oxy, stuff like that?
Occasionally,
Yeah.
pills,
Yep,
but not usually.
yep.
A lot of times they get away from the pills because the pills are a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
And not as readily available
Harder to get, yeah.
as heroin that's mixed with fentanyl.
Right.
Yep.
So they're paying more for the pill and not getting as much of a high, so to speak, if that's the correct way of saying it.
And heroin's not really in anymore, right?
No, that's kind of on the
No, yeah.
outs, just because fentanyl's so much stronger, and these cases, their body becomes addicted to it, so they just want something stronger. and stronger.
I haven't looked at all this, but do we know about suicides involving opiates?
So that is a piece of data that we do track. That's kind of tough, because sometimes when we get to the scene, whether it's family or friends that we're talking to, most of the time they want to believe it's an accident, so it's tough to track.
How about coroner data?
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, we tend not to get anything from the coroner usually afterwards. If there is a report of a death and the state police come out, they'll tend to take jurisdiction.
Okay.
We're more of in a supportive role when it comes to that, if it's a suspected death. Not suspected, suspected foul play, they take more of a role in that.
What of the services and resources are people most interested in? Like, if you sort of ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, and then flip side, are there barriers that you hear as repeating patterns?
So I can immediately tell you that the barrier would be the amount of beds that are available, trying to get into a rehab, something like that. Another barrier is, recognizing that they do need help. That's a huge barrier that we're seeing, because most of the time we talk to the families, they're there, but the family, they're usually the ones that really want to talk to us.
Right.
As far as the resources, we've given out, so the behavioral health helpline, they also offer services for opioid use and substance abuse. That's a big one, because that's an immediate thing. Like, they can use their phone and text, they can call immediately and talk to someone. I know that STAR is big in the area. And I've also heard of the Heron rehab as well. Thank you. And also the High Point in New Bedford. Those are the four that I would say that I hear the most when we go to the houses. That
What was that one in New Bedford again?
High Point?
High Point.
Yep.
The Heron doesn't take insurance, right?
Oh, really? I did not know
The
that.
heroin is extremely expensive, it's
Yeah.
in Seacon.
Right.
But if you go through the heroin project, they usually recommend Gosnell down the Cape.
Okay. Okay.
And are you aware of anyone other than STAR that prescribes buprenorphine at this point, or Suboxone, anything like that?
Not in the area. Star's the only one that I'm aware of. I'm not sure. Are you aware of any other? I think Star's
We
the
don't
only one that
have
I've
so much
heard.
contact with these. The clinician is usually, and that's why she's good to have when we go out, because she's the one with all the resources. We're kind of just helping her, but she usually has all the resources and has the in with all these centers and recovery places.
Yeah, she usually has a contact there, so it's easy for her to just call and, talk to someone as opposed to leaving a message, waiting to get a call back. So it's helpful to have her with us.
I know you don't collect this data, but do you have any feel for what the socioeconomic level of the people who receive Narcan is? Are these mostly people who are employed, unemployed,
Honestly,
criminal records, no criminal records?
I
It's
think it's a
all
mix,
over.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
What's
all
it?
over. Yep. We've seen it as far as, juveniles who have no record that we've never even dealt with, the schools haven't dealt with, to, moms that, someone's walking in and they're finding them. So it is a wide range. Moms that are fully employed, no criminal record is what I meant, sorry.
Do you have any information about how many in Westport where children were involved and were there when their parent overdosed?
I don't think we track it.
We don't track that, but it
call
is,
DCF. We call DCF anytime, anything like that.
How often have you had to call DCF?
I wouldn't say 50%, but it's a high percentage.
It's just important information because then who in the school knows that this has happened and how we can support the children when this happens. It's really critical. Are you aware of incidents when they happen or any students that are?
Unless the student comes in and reports it themselves to a teacher or to a guidance counselor, or in the rare chance that DCF reaches out to us, but they wouldn't share that with us. They would just say they've taken on the case, and do we have any information to support the student? They wouldn't say why they have the case. But we don't get that information unless the student shares it.
Have you arrested anybody for dealing fentanyl?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Possessions, dealing, not necessarily,
About how-
not overdoses, but
About how many arrests have been made for dealing
We have,
recently?
so we have a lot of cases that we're currently working on as well.
How many?
So you can't really say exactly an exact number. We always have constant narcotic investigations going based on intelligence that we receive from, people on the street, from outside agencies. There is no set number as to how many we have at any continuing time. We could have 3, we could have 5, we could have none.
Where is it, do you have any idea where it's coming from in general?
Fentanyl?
Yeah.
Well, source cities. It's Providence, New York, Boston. That's mainly where it comes, Fall River.
How about New Hampshire?
I haven't heard of anything from New Hampshire. I think a lot of times, the communities up like Lynn, Lowell, Lawrence, that's big for New Hampshire. But for what we see, they go to Fall River immediately. If not, they go to Providence, because it's a little cheaper. They might drive all the way up to New York, where it's even more cheap. Yeah.
the Cape's a big spot.
Yep.
I heard there were fentanyl factories in New Hampshire. I don't know if that's a rumor or not.
I haven't heard that.
All right, are there any other questions for the officers?
A million, but I know we don't have time. But I guess it's a kind of a question for us, and for you all about, well, one, it seems like it might be helpful to speak with the therapist who works with you all, to understand more about the resources that she's referring, that people are interested in, what gaps she sees. And two, what's the best way to follow up with additional questions? Like, rather than us doing it all separately, maybe we can organize questions and send them through you, or how is the best way to do that?
Sure.
That works, yeah, absolutely.
I guess my other thought is just any other parting kind of thoughts or recommendations about, based on what you're seeing, experiencing, patterns, trends, gaps, what you think would be helpful, and what you think we should know more about. What are good questions to ask?
So I do like that we got the opportunity today to come and talk to you guys about this program that we offer. I'm not sure why we didn't even put it out. We've been doing it for a few years now. But as far as I mean, I think it would be really helpful to have some type of, whether it's like a, I don't know, an email chain or some type of thing to keep us updated on, you know, what, I can let you guys know, like, when I'm going out, how many families I reached, how many people accepted services, how many people, you know, were like, nope, I'm all set. Like, if that's something that you're interested in, that's something that I already track. If that's, you know, something that you guys would be interested in, I can definitely provide that information.
I could be the, and Chief Dunn, so that you're not concerned about sending emails to everybody, and then I can share that
Yeah,
with the
That
committee.
works. Yeah, sure.
So.
Absolutely.
That might be the best way to do that.
That sounds great.
And then if anybody has questions, they can certainly email Chief Dunn. I would like to not have it scattered all over, that it's either between the two of us to contact the detective.
That works.
Since this committee is, the mission of this committee is to figure out how to use the funds from the settlement, does the police, are there ways that the police department could use the funding?
Oh, yeah.
Just getting that
No,
clinician,
no,
that
what I
grant running
mean,
out.
you know, not just in general, but are there,
No, with the clinician, because like we said, the grant for the clinician is going to run out in September, plus she's in Easton anyway, so
Yeah.
trying to get a clinician closer with some sort of funding that way and more often would definitely be more beneficial for us.
most likely the mechanism by which you could get some of the funds is by applying for a grant. So you'd have to have a specific, you know, you can't just say, put it in our budget. You'd have to
Right.
say
Absolutely.
something very specific.
Yep.
So keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think the number one thing that we've really felt is helping is the clinician, going out, getting into the community, because when they see the guys in uniform, when they have to call 911, it's a totally different experience. You know, they're seeing their loved one going out on a stretcher, they don't know, you know, are they alive, are they dead, are they gonna come back tonight? And then we show up a couple days later and, you know, everything's it's a different atmosphere at that point. And, you know, we're not trying to be intimidating, like I said, like we're offering resources. We're not here to just, you know, clean up a mess and just leave. Like, we want to actually help. And I think the clinician with her side, I think that she's been so helpful with, you know, getting in the door with those families as well. Because, you know, sometimes she'll know about, you know, like STAR and all those other programs that they might already be involved in, and she can speak on that. But I do think that would be the number one thing.
How is her time paid for? She's an employee of Easton?
Yep.
So she's on loan from Easton? Does she volunteer her time? How is she compensated for what she does for you?
So
us.
she and we are compensated by the COSAP grant. So they pay us for overtime. So we'll go out after work or like a 4-hour block on the weekend, and she'll be with us, so they'll pay for her overtime and our overtime.
And that's running out.
Correct.
And it's hourly.
Um,
They pay hourly,
So, yep, it's a 4-hour block that we designate to it.
time and a half, type overtime.
Yep, overtime.
We're going to have to
Sorry.
kind of move on, but
Good.
I think there's a lot of great questions. And I just want to say that that's something that the chief has been working on. Can you just quickly say what you've been working on in terms of filling that need in the town?
So we've already explored about, with Michelle and Detective Donovan and I, about a clinician. I agree with you, 100%, a week or two is too late, I believe, if we could do something within a week. However, you know, like we talked about the clinician in Easton, she's just all over the place. So that's something I would like to do, is for our committee to explore, when this grant ends, is looking into a per diem clinician to go out or collaborate with other communities, Somerset, Swansea. So pretty much every community, with the exception of one, is involved in this program. So it's going to impact everyone with this grant. The other thing is the SIMS program. That costs about $15,000 a year to maintain. I've already explored through the Bristol County Police Chiefs Association, can each community incur the cost, meaning we divide it amongst the 20 communities within the county? If not, is that something we want to explore with the other communities? I personally really like the fact that if we have a Westport resident who suffered an overdose in a different community, we are notified. And we get notified streamlined through this program, where if we're not part of it, we might not know, and something might fall through the cracks. So that's very important to me. So it's about the SIMS program, it's about looking at a clinician, and the cost that we might have to, like, apply through a grant within our community for this program. I personally would like to see this program go forward. I see a lot of benefit to this. We talk about Michelle and Mike going, they provide a different face to the police, to our police department, where, like you mentioned, there's not somebody in uniform, where it's more of a human aspect and a human element to it, where the families start opening up to them and contacting them about where that wouldn't have happened in the past. So I think, us exploring this program, if and when it ends in September, I think it's something we should prioritize.
And one of the things that you've done is you've spoken to other police chiefs about this.
Yes.
And this is something that I've also, and we addressed with the collaborative. There's a public health collaborative, and there's shared funding, and there's shared individuals between the towns to do, inspections, and we have one person that does that. So why couldn't we also use the collaborative funds to support this kind of program? So that's one of the things that we're looking at from the Board of Health and the Police Department in terms of supporting it, but also looking at these funds when we get around to then distributing the funds.
I know it doesn't directly deal with this committee, but it does a little bit with the mental health aspect of it, where, I would like to proceed forward with that as well, with the collaborative, with the mental health side of this as well, not so much the opioid. I know this is the opioid committee, but I'm really keen on exploring both mental health and the opioid.
Well, they're not always separate.
They're not,
So-
but sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. Yes.
All right, great. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
For coming and
Thank you for your
speaking to
work.
us and
Thank you.
sharing
Thank you.
with the community. If anyone is watching, will watch this, to know that this program exists. I didn't know it existed until we started this committee. And so this is one of the reasons why we need to improve our communication with each other. So thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, so next on the agenda is, I also want to present Stephanie Barboza from the Massachusetts Organization of Addiction and Recovery. And it's, MORE is the acronym, and she represents STAR. She's working through STAR, correct? So why don't you tell the community and the committee about your role and the resources that you have available to help the residents of Westport.
Absolutely. First, I'm going to say, excuse my voice, right? I'm getting over a sore throat. I didn't know what to expect, but everything that I will make mention of, I have 5, right? I'm going to hand them here. We can have copies of. So first off, with STAR, I am the program coordinator, educator, trainer for the First Responders Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act. And I'm sure I've been sending you some emails. What we do is the Narcan education and training, go out and train for all first responders on how to effectively carry and administer the Narcan. Also, stigma and harm reduction training, all providing continuing education. With that, we have the FAST team, which is sort of like the COSAP here. The FAST team goes a little more deeper, where they have funds, and also part of their funds is to work with other first responders to enhance the teams, like adding clinicians or paying overtime for your police officers to do the work, to continue to do the work that they're doing. But also, FAST team provides the money to put them in sober homes as well. And I always like to say the FAST team is the one, VIP, somebody who knows somebody, right? That can actually make a phone call and get them into treatment immediately. And that's working side by side with STAR, Child and Family, the Fall River Comprehensive Addiction and Treatment, which is Sarah LaPointe, who also does same-day dosing and methadone management. So they work as a collaborative team, as you were just mentioning, collaborative teams. So that's the big word, right? Collaborative, right? So with STAR, it's a whole collaborative, I say, a force to be reckoned with, because they're all connected. And we do SIMS as well, but we also are getting ready to launch what we call Gelada. Gelada system is also offered to all our community partners. And Gelada would be able, just like they were explaining with SIMS, but it's going to go a little deeper, that you'll be able to get even more information on the individual, as far as if they are already working with a clinician, any past history, and even deeper to when's the last time they were in treatment or met with their counselor, and who is their recovery coach, who is their counselor. So you can get deeper information on that. So I would encourage you to link up. You can give me a call, but I also put Nikki's number on here. She is the director and program for the substance use and the homelessness. So that's how we're able to work that together. And we just got a lot more funding that's put right into there. And she'd be better off to share with you more in depth to that, because I'm the program educator trainer, and I just get out and tell everybody the good news, right? That we have help and we have resources. So that's my part with STAR. With MORE, I am the Southeast Regional Coordinator for MORE, which means I cover the whole Southeast region, and I am a voice and a face for people in recovery. Alongside of doing different curriculums that help them with Advocacy 101, how to share your story, because as you know, we need them here, even sitting at the table here. So we gotta educate them first so that they come in and they don't feel ashamed, right? And they feel good about sharing, and their story really hits, right? Because stories do make a difference. So we educate them and train them on that to give their voice power, but we also do policies. In that packet, we have several policies that were already passed, and we're doing a policy forum. So it's talking about all the policies that are around recovery and substance use or mental health. What are we fighting now? What's on the table from local level to state level? So that we all know what's on the table now, right? Become vocal, visible, and valuable to create that change that we know we want to see. So within my role, what I'm doing right now is I'm charged to do a Southeast region-wide, I'm doing a voter registration drive where every recovery center will have voter registration in their facilities, but the coordinator or the director of the elections department will be coming in to help them understand how to fill out the form, Q&A, because you know there's a bunch of different questions out there. They don't know. They have the misconception, unconscious bias, of what they knew before. Oh, I served time in prison before, so I can't vote. Well, wrong. That's been changed, right? Oh, I live in a shelter. I can't vote. Wrong. That's been changed. So that he's going to come in and answer those questions. And then the next series, we go to a speaker series. And all these policies are on. There will be a local level representative to come in and speak to one policy at a time, because in my group it's only an hour, right? You can't hit them all. So it's going to be continued all the way. This is a big election year. So we have election year this year. So all the way working up to that, educating and training on the power of your voice, but get involved, be a participant, right? So that we can help create that change, even in the recovery centers, so that they understand that we need you and you are valuable. So with MORE and STAR, I'm doing education, training, community partnership, but really lifting people up so there can be a voice and that they can join us on this side and create change in our community. And I think I said that in a quick speed date and spill, right? Give you opportunity if you have any questions, I can answer them. But the information there is spelled right out. So more is both entities, education, training, community partnerships, building, right, but also to the next level of educating people in recovery.
I do have a couple of questions.
Yes.
Also, thank you for being here. I used to do advocacy at the State House side by side with Marianne Franjulis from MORE,
okay.
so I'm
So
familiar.
you know about MORE?
Yes, yes. But so I have a question for your STAR hat and for your MORE hat, but they're connected to the same thing, which is how we can engage and get input from folks with lived experience. So in your MORE hat, are you aware of any Westport residents who are active in MORE and might be willing to share their input with the committee or even join the committee, because we have a seat available for?
Yes, so I've been carrying around your flyer.
Oh, great.
And I've been going around the town crier, right? Unfortunately, a lot of the folks that I do know that are from Westport don't live here anymore, right? And the ones that there are people not coming up, so the ones that I do know are searching from their family members that are still here, and that would come and sit on the board that are not actively using, right? So nobody wants to say, oh, I'll send Mary Ann over there, because they don't know if they'll be responsible. So all I can do is keep plugging. But one of the things on my list right now is doing a, for the Westport community, is a tabling event. So I want to bring out health and wellness and treatment to, I was thinking the library, but then I was thinking, library's kind of small, and then I was like, well, where are we going to get foot traffic, right? So we need a place, that I know foot traffic's going to be. I even thought I'll go find a Walmart or something and go in the front, right? Because everybody goes to the store, right? So I am working, trying to figure out a local place that I would have a lot of foot traffic to bring those resources out. And then I thought, then I could start asking, because I'll be right in Westport.
We have Lee's Market.
That's what I thought of, yeah.
Well, the only
No
thing is,
Walmart.
Lee's Market would be, they would need to be asked, because they're
Oh, yeah.
limiting what can happen. I mean, you can do things, hand out pamphlets outside, but I don't think that's what you're.
Yeah, most places you have to send a proposal.
Yeah.
Even for the library, you have to do a proposal. So that's why I'm trying to think it through, right? Instead of just go out there, think it through so we have the foot traffic.
Right, and Steffi and I have been in communication, and one of the first things I asked her was, do you know anybody who lives in Westport? And I put that out to the community, that we have one seat left on this committee, and the seat is for someone with a lived experience who is in recovery. And we have yet to, and I have put out, and I think a number of people have put out requests and talking to friends and the connections they have, and we have yet to have somebody who would be willing to
Right.
sit on the advisory committee.
Right. So I will be at Start IOP this Friday, and that's usually when I get some first, people in.
And how
So-
many years of recovery would you like to see? Is there a number?
I mean, I think that it's important that the person's in recovery and feels safe and comfortable in recovery.
Sharing.
To be able to come here and sit on an advisory board.
Right.
And be able to share their experience. Somebody early on in recovery may not be that
Right.
comfortable. You
Right,
know
and they
what I
get more emotional
Well,
as well, right?
It's not the emotion, it's how comfortable they're going to be feeling. We're on camera right
Right.
now. So then they would be saying to the community, yes, I'm in recovery, right? Where their recovery might be anonymous. And I think that that's an important piece to sitting on the advisory committee. We're open, I think the committee's open to anyone in recovery, but I really think, in being a clinician, I also am protective, because I want that person to feel secure in their recovery and in themselves, that they could sit here
Right,
and be open.
right, and that's where I was mentioning into the emotions, because they come up, right? You won't get no work done.
So, are there any other questions for Stephanie? Yeah.
Substance use disorder is not one thing. I'd like to know if you have any idea of how the population in recovery that you deal with breaks down into former heroin users, former oxy users, and former fentanyl users. In other words, do you have any?
No, because
Numbers on that.
when we all get together and we talk, we make sure, we tell them not to be mentioning the choice of drug.
Okay.
Because it can be triggers,
Okay.
You can.
right?
So that's a
Right,
complete black
so,
box?
yeah.
Okay. Second question is, at STAR, is there any barrier to receiving buprenorphine on demand? Can people walk in?
They do have
So there's a
same-day
bridge
walk-ins.
program?
Yep, they have same-day walk-ins over at 1010 South Main Street.
So is there any kind of bottleneck there?
No?
Okay, that's great.
And STAR is a wealth of resource
Oh, yeah.
for people in our community, and I think that it's a matter of creating there is a pathway that's easier. I think that's one of the things that I would like us to look at, is there a way for us to support and finance a pathway that makes it easier for Westport residents, because we don't have an infrastructure, right? So let's see how we can create an easy path for people to get to those programs.
Right, and I would also state that the FR Cara project is one of those pathways, because STAR works right alongside with them, like STAR's all our resources with the FR Cara. That's how we've been able to join with other surroundings.
What is FR Cara? Sorry.
The first responders.
Oh, that's what you
competence.
referenced
Yeah,
before, yeah.
that's what I put here. Yeah, we have everything there.
Hi, Stephanie. Thank you for coming. Just talking about that, what departments are you currently working with locally with this program?
For EMTs,
Okay.
right?
Police, anything, do you work
Yeah.
hands with any?
EMTs, Fall Rivers EMTs, Beth Fonts,
Okay,
she handles all that.
okay,
So I don't do that part.
Sure.
Right? So Beth Fonts is the one that handles all that,
okay.
all the first responders. I do the education and training.
Have you done
And
education?
Nikki would be able to, yeah, she's got more jobs now, but Nikki may be able to give you more direct, but
Okay.
Beth Fonts is the one that I would normally contact.
All right, thank you.
Do you ever work with schools in
Yes.
education and training?
We are working with the schools now, Parent Center. I just did an education and training with the Parent Center, and they just developed a new program as well. And Star now has a trailer outside in the parking lot at Durfee High.
Okay. So I
Yeah.
just want to clarify, so it sounds like to talk more about the pathway and the CARA, FR CARA program, it might be your colleagues, you're mentioning who we could talk
To
to.
give more in-depth.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
to
great.
Give more in-depth.
Do you know those, do you have those?
I just gave you the cards, too.
It's on the, they're the people who are,
Yeah.
we have the cards. Okay, fantastic.
Yep.
Okay.
And they'll tell you, they can tell you more about the funding that's there, the new funding that they just received, and all of it is for working with our surrounding towns, first responders.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Stephanie, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Stephanie was also, came in for the focus group and was a valuable resource during the focus group as well.
Awesome.
Okay. All right, so I would like to just move on to approval of the January 21st minutes. Now, there were only 5 of us here for that. So do any of the members that were here for that meeting,
I move to accept the minutes.
Do I have a
okay?
second?
I was here, right?
You were here.
You were here, Craig. You were here,
You
so
have good attendance.
David
You're on the
Dorsey
list.
moved and Valerie Bissett seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved, so approved. All right, so let's go to member updates. I put first on the update was the focus group. And I handed out to everyone a little summary of the focus group and how it went. We do have, before I get into that, we have one, Pam and I were the two
Thank
that
you.
ran the focus group. David was present. David, do you have any, before I get into my summary, any statement or,
I learned a lot. It was very interesting.
what did you learn from the focus group?
I have to think about that.
I'll give you time to think about
Yeah, I
it.
have to think about
right.
that.
So-
I came away from it feeling that I learned a lot.
Okay. So the focus group was to get input from community members about where they thought the needs were, what the issues were in town. And so you see around you, over here on this side, are some of the things that people talked about, some of the issues, some of the needs. So I'm just going to quickly go through some of them. First of all, 6 Westport residents came to the first focus group. One was, or is a licensed mental health counselor. 4 are family members that have lost someone to overdose. 1 has been in recovery for many years from alcohol use. 5 were ages 61 to 82. 1 was 45. So it was an older group that came, and 3 of 3 of the people that lost someone lost a child. And one lost, the one that was 45 lost her fiance. One of the attendees currently works in the school department as an adjustment counselor. She was a very valuable resource for everyone about what's happening at the high middle school. She's a high school adjustment counselor. And then one attendee, which was Stephanie from Star Moore, was a representative, and then David Dorsky from the committee was also attended. The meeting addressed substance use and co-occurring mental health and behavioral health concerns and needs from the people that were present. The key mental health concerns addressed were depression, anxiety, grief, bullying, isolation, loneliness, and how mental health concerns and struggles can lead to physical illness. Also addressed was the issue of fitting in and peer pressure contributing to teen substance use. The lack of substance use education, the need for more effort in prevention, and the impact of stigma in seeking help were identified issues. Education about the use and availability of Narcan and fentanyl test strips was also identified, as well as understanding and supporting families impacted by substance use disorders. A strong supportive recovery community was identified, which was a surprise to me, because I searched online for NA and AA meetings, and I could find none in Westport. They were not in the website. But there is an AA meeting at Pacific Union Church, and that was mentioned.
Can I ask about that? Did people explain that more? Is it not AA meetings, but a private kind of friendships or informal network?
The person that that had years of recovery, she's the one who identified that, and she identified that she felt there was a supportive community around substance use disorders. So it's probably from her participation in AA at the church. I also asked about NA, and she said that a lot of people who have narcotic use disorders or opiate use disorders, whatever, they also go to AA. It's the same, sort of the same structure, AA and NA. So, but they're also going to those meetings. But it was a surprise to me because I didn't know that there was anything in town. There used to be something at Our Lady of Grace, and I don't know if that is still there. So that bears,
Well, I think they said there's also one at the Grange.
yeah, there's one at the Grange.
An AA?
I believe so. Okay. So, I mean, this
Is
is,
it a closed meeting, or do you happen to know? It's an open meeting?
so that also might be a place to get information. If they're open meetings, you can attend. So that's something for us to think about in doing a focus and getting feedback. And continuing on with the focus group itself, the strong supportive recovery community was described, and other strengths identified including our schools and the current help of private practitioners from Child and Family Services at the middle school, at the middle high school. They meet with students with mental health struggles during school hours, and how that's paid for is through their insurance, but they're available in the school, which I was not aware of. The people that they attended also felt like strengths, and they're behind me as well, are natural resources that we have in town. And the healing part of the natural resources, the hiking, the being in nature, that people identified as really comforting. And it may be some area for us to look at in terms of funding hiking groups, or, looking at that as a strength for us and how we can tap into that. The importance of peer support to abstain from substance use and to recover was stressed, as well as the need for more support for parents and children impacted. And that was pretty evident in the meeting. And then one of the suggestions that was made, which I love the idea, but it won't be an easy thing to implement, but is having a family resource center in town. because there's a family resource center in Fall River, and there's a family resource center in New Bedford, but we don't have a family resource center. And so I think that one of the challenges addressed was how to communicate information. People were saying, well, where do you get this? When we talked about Narcan, the people that were present didn't know you could get Narcan at the nursing office through the Board of Health or at the fire department. They didn't know. And I told them that there's a plan to try to create boxes with fentanyl strips and Narcan. And they all thought that around town, and they thought that was a good idea. And the other thing is then, how do you engage people in the learning and being open to learning about these things, which is a huge challenge. Because I've run events and people don't not come in droves, they come in a trickle, right? There's a few people that will come to some of the mental health events that I do. And then how to foster collaboration to effectively address the community's needs. So we have some work to do, but go ahead.
I thought of what I learned.
Okay.
I have notes. One of the members at the meeting brought up, well, a complaint that physicians are overprescribing these oral opiates. And, I mean, that's the way this whole thing started. That's why we're here. And that kind of abuse has sort of leveled off. In other words, fentanyl has gone way up, you know, 10-fold and 20-fold. But Oxy and, you know, that Vicodin, that kind of use, it's still there. And then the abuse is still there. And there needs to be a way of looking at prescribing practices. Now, I know that they've really clamped down a lot in, you know, at least I know I worked at South Coast and also the DEA and all that. But it would be important to sort of find out what people are getting discharged with, you know, after their hip surgery, after their knee surgery, you know. I know that, I mean, some doctors prescribe a lot of stuff.
And they used to, but because they're being monitored,
Well-
they're not doing the extent that they did in the past.
My wife had some surgery last year, and she got a big bottle of synthetic opiate, you know, which we ended up getting rid of. I mean, she didn't use any of it, actually. But, it, you know, it was in the house. And
Question.
you know, I just don't have a feel for what's really going on. And that's a gateway, you know, to addiction, real addiction.
Okay. Your question, Beth?
Yeah, I had, just looking at this sheet, I see not fitting in, belonging, identity, and I wondered if there were more about that. I'm just thinking about the environment right now we have at Bridgewater State University. A lot of LGBTQIA students are very scared. Is that what was meant by identity? Are there other identities that were meant, just in terms of thinking about supports for young people and families and specific groups that might be worth focusing on?
I think that it was, do you remember, I think it was they were talking about kids, young teens, not
Just
fitting in.
identity development.
Yeah,
more
all
broadly.
of that. And certainly, that's another issue. When you're looking at mental health issues and LGBTQ members, that there's a lot of pressure right now. And just in mental health, realms, it's a higher incidence of suicide in that group. And now with the increased negative political pressure, we may see an increase in that as well. So not fitting in, not belonging, and identity, I think it was really focused on teens. But I also have to say that what I know with the elderly is that when they're isolated in their homes and they can't get out, or if they do have pain, chronic pain, that they may be prescribed. And they may already be addicted from before, and so are the physicians tapering them? Or are they looking at medication-assisted treatment, which is what that map is up there on treatment and recovery. And I think that's what you're getting at the buprenorphine is how available is that to help people so they can transition off of and coming off of an opiate.
By the way, New York Times yesterday had a fabulous article about buprenorphine.
I read it. It is, it was a great article. So that's it. Are there any questions from the committee about the focus group? My plan is to do a focus group with Dina, who is here this evening, at the school and at the next PTO meeting, which it can't be this one, it has to be the one in March. Do you know what the date is on the PTO?
I can find that out.
Yeah, because I want to get on their agenda to speak to them, and maybe even having a questionnaire if they don't want to participate in the focus group, but, to capture more information from parents of kids that they're concerned about. Okay, well, that's it for did you have anything, Pam?
From
the focus group.
No, I think you've pretty much covered it.
Okay.
I mean, I think I was impressed with the amount of people we had. I was afraid we weren't going to, but I think it was very helpful.
Yeah. And-
Donna, the next meeting is March 13th
Okay.
at 6:30. The meetings are held at White's,
Okay.
and they are always on the second Thursday of the month. So March 13th, April 10th, May 8th.
And then how does one get on their agenda?
So they have a website. It is, if you just Google Westport Middle High School PTO, and then that will give you information on who to contact.
Okay. I will do that, so that Dina
Do
and
you
I.
know how many parents are on that committee?
It's a smaller group at the middle high school PTO. I don't know how many attend those meetings regularly.
Okay, so that will be a goal for continued community input. All right, so if there's no other questions, can we move on to other member updates? Sure. Anybody want to start with what they've been working on? Would you like to share?
I will begin. I want to thank Donna and Pam for their work in getting the Heron Project to come to Westport Middle High School. Chris Heron will be presenting on April 1st at 9 a.m. So I'd like to formally invite everybody to that presentation. It will take place in the auditorium. This week, while school is out, I'm working on a letter to our families about what the Chris Heron Project is. Many of them probably do know who Chris Heron is, but giving them some biographical information, and then presenting them with an opportunity to contact the school if they have any concerns about their students attending the presentation, and what resources will be available for students and families once the presentation is over, because I'm sure it will be very heavy for many of our students.
And does the Heron Project, I'm sure, provide certain resources and then adjustment counselors?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they have a wonderful, wonderful website that I can share out in an email with all of the resources that they have available. Chris Heron will be speaking to grades 8 through 12, and that was based on a recommendation from his team and the age levels that they felt were most appropriate. So we'll have about 525 students present at the presentation. So thank you again for your help with that.
You're welcome.
And just to be clear, the money is not coming from the settlement fund. We were able to acquire payment for Mr. Heron to come through the collaborative. The South Coast Public Health Collaborative is 6 communities, and 2 of the communities have already had Mr. Heron speak at their school, and I just asked that he also speak here, so the collaborative is paying for that. Anyone else have anything they want to update? Do you want to talk about your?
Yeah, so I think that at some point we want to try and interview people in the community who can potentially apply for funds, and also to learn about some aspects of substance use disorder in the community. And so the idea would be to standardize our interview procedures. And what I did was I looked at the study that was commissioned at great expense by Fall River. They hired this consulting company, PIRE, and I think they spent like over $100 grand on it. And but PIRE filed a very nice report, and they actually were very transparent about how they collected their information in Fall River, and they published an interview template that was custom designed for Fall River. So what I did was I took their interview template and I tried to make it very broad, but not, but try and make it so that it would be applicable to Westport, so that it didn't sound like it was you're interviewing someone about problems in Fall River. And so what I would propose is that we look at what I put together and modify it according to what everyone thinks, and then we adopt it so that when we do interviews, we can submit our data to Donna, who can, or whoever wants to collate this interview information.
She's the
so we
data
can-
queen right here.
Well, I mean, we can figure out whether we want to put it into a database or not. But at least it would be, the questions would sort of be standard, and we'd know what people were thinking in response to certain questions that we've all agreed on in principle. And that way we wouldn't have to go back and re-interview people, you know, when we have a discussion. So I would say take a look at what I put together and you know, change it however you want, and then we can standardize it, and then everyone would agree to use that. I mean, you don't have to fill in every space, but that way we could compare interview responses among different interviewees using different interviewers.
And one of the ideas that I had was that you would reach out to the professional, the physicians in
That's,
town.
yeah, that's it. I've made a list of providers that, you know, with permission of the committee, I'll just reach out and contact some people different ways. I don't know whether they'll want to talk to me or not, but I'll try and get information from them according to this interview rubric that, you know, we agree on.
And it might also be, I mean, we could realistically do a mailing of these questions with a maybe a little cover letter.
Yeah.
If you're reaching out, because physicians, as everyone is busy. But what are have everybody had a chance to look at the questions? And any thoughts right now about what David has worked on?
Donna gave me a copy. Oh,
I mean, I think it's very helpful to have standardized questions. I think, you know, we might want to adapt them, like there's certain questions for providers, or if we're trying to talk to people with lived experience. Providers, I would, for example, want to ask about, depending on what kind of provider, do they prescribe buprenorphine, or et cetera. But I thought one question to add would be something about gaps. You know, you sort of say, what's the greatest need, you know? And then I think probably based on the Fall River language, kind of reference to, you know, Westport's opioid response efforts. I think we don't have a coalition the way Fall River did. That was referenced some here. We're sort of at the beginning of trying to make a coherent strategy. So probably references to a opioid management strategy could be just like what Westport is doing and not doing, or, you know, something more general, because otherwise it sounds like there's an official strategy already. And not yet.
Mark it up and
Yeah.
It might be helpful if everybody reviews it, and if you have a suggestion to make a change in something, to contact David directly.
send
And he can, play with it and work with it, as we're starting from scratch here, so, and I think it's fine if people just send their suggestions to David, and then he can represent at the next, and then have it before the next meeting, and we can review it again, because I think we have to move ahead and say, yes, we're going to use this, right?
I think it was a PDF, though, so if you have it in a Word document or some kind of document that can be edited.
I don't own Microsoft Word. I use
A Google
Pages. I
Doc?
use Pages.
Can you send it?
I can send, how do you send?
I can follow up
We
with you.
have some
I don't know.
technological challenges here.
I can follow up with
I'll
you
admit
after to
to
see
that
if we
too.
can.
Yeah,
I
so,
don't own Microsoft.
Maybe we need training.
Oh, I'd be happy to
And
do
the
that.
new, Microsoft goes in and it goes into your old files and it makes them so you can't edit your old Word files.
okay.
So you have to, it's a mess.
All right, so is everybody okay with that plan? To just look at it, make suggestions to David, and then David can present? Okay,
If you have Acrobat, you can edit your PDFs.
That I don't.
Yeah.
okay. All right, so,
I did have one thing that I
Yeah.
wanted to, I did look a little bit more into that CARE Massachusetts.
yes.
They have another event coming up.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to mention that, yeah.
It's February 27th. It's a Zoom from 2 to 3 p.m. And it's all on recommended uses of the funds. So that might be a good thing if anybody's available. I'll try to watch it myself.
I'm going to try as well, yeah.
So that is a great resource. I've reached out. I'm trying to make a connection with one person so that I can have that person be the person I ask questions from the committee. But it is an incredible resource for us. So if you're able to connect with, go to the website, read what they have to offer, and then the next meeting, we can talk about how we want to best use their support and their assistance. Because they actually have, one of the things I did do as well was I reached out to nurses in the collaborative about what they're doing with the funds, because they're all small towns like us, and they haven't responded to me. So I'm going to actually give them a call to see if I can get some information. But there's also on that CARE Mass site, they have other meetings that they've had, they're recorded. So there's one from the community of Swampscott that they said did a great job, and so they use that as an example. So I'm going to be watching that and maybe encourage you guys to look at that as well.
Swampscott, huh?
Do you know
Yeah.
what the code is to watch the video? It asks for a code, and I didn't know.
I do not, I don't know, so
Well,
I
we can call and
you
find
can
out.
call and find out, but I can also make sure that we have access to that resource.
Great.
And
Yes, do we have time
Yes.
to do a quick,
I think
at least quick intro?
we have plenty of time.
So I made copies, they came out sort of strange, but of the proposed sort of timeline, which is a concept, don't get too worried about the details, but the idea being, okay, if we sequence out, working backwards from when we might want to release the request for proposals, thinking about how much in advance of a select board meeting, thank you, Craig, we need to give them recommendations, which is really the Wednesday before their next Monday meeting. So I plugged in a little bit of that in August and September, and some potential things for us to talk about at upcoming meetings, which will evolve. So, I think this is the same kind of thing. We don't have a lot of time now. People could email thoughts, or we could come back to it more fully at the next meeting, perhaps. People could take a look and think about it. But I wanted to include some things like how we'll, getting information, and then having time to discuss how we want to put that into a request for proposal. Some recruiting of people, having maybe a subcommittee develop a request for proposal, bring it back, have the group approve it, and then posting it. And and then setting a deadline, having some time before we receive it, and in the meantime, coming up with how are we going to decide. Like, a lot of times people use a kind of form to fill out and score proposals, or however we want to do that. And then our decision process, and then making a recommendation to the select board. So basically trying to like look about how long might that take. And this is a rough estimate that looks at, I think it's between, May and June potentially. Yeah, looks like this handout is missing a page. Yeah, well, I'm not sure what happened. I'll have to look back at that. But you have it electronically. You have the proper printout. Okay, great. So I think it was, the way I laid it out, either May or June, potentially, we could be ready to post an RFP, request for proposal, and then having probably at least a month and a half or so, receive it in August, or, July or August, and then at that next meeting, discuss. And also potentially anticipating making a recommendation to the select board, and they may come back with questions, may or may not. So just trying to think those things through in our, managing our hopes and expectations and anticipating a timeline. So,
I think I wasn't able to be at the meeting to request the $5,000 for administrative fees or costs, and so Craig was able to do that. I think that any time that we're going to propose anything to the select board, that we should be prepared to be there to answer questions in that moment. And I would make every effort as the chair to be there, but that we have to, and we also have to figure out how many people can go, because again, we can't have everybody there because we're a quorum and we have to open a meeting, I guess. So it's a different process, but I think that's what I plan on doing. I just wasn't able to this time because of the focus group.
wouldn't we, since, isn't the select board already a public meeting, so it would be okay if we had a quorum?
Well, but we would have to open a meeting, right?
If we have a meeting with another board that constitutes a quorum for the other board, then they and we have to post that.
As a specific
Yeah.
joint meeting, okay.
So for me, as long as there's no more than 4 of us at the meeting, we don't have a quorum. So it might be saying, okay, I need Chief Dunn to be there because he's going to talk about
X.
the program. I need Laura there because she's going to talk about something in the school, right? So we're going to have to,
Make a
and
plan.
How do we do that with you there? You're considered a part of the quorum because you're part of the select board. We'd have
I
to,
mean, that has happened on other boards, so
Yeah.
I
I know that when the Board of Health has to meet, if we're all there, we have to open a meeting and then close a meeting officially, so.
right, yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
and post it,
procedure,
yeah.
yes.
So, but we'll, as we get closer to that, then we'll figure out who is going to be there to speak.
But to know that, in order to be on the agenda in time to do the posting, you have to have decided whether or not you're gonna have enough people to the meeting. So we post it midday on Thursday.
Right.
And so, working with this rule of thumb that you should have the decision by Wednesday at close of business from the other board, or have made the decision by then, so that you could do the joint posting, or do separate postings. And then that's just communicating with the town clerk.
Right. Okay.
And Mr. Barbosa is an expert at all these processes, by the way.
I know he is.
Including RFPs.
We are very
including
fortunate.
How long it takes to generate a check and get a signature.
That was my other question. Follow up with that.
It is, I'm very thankful that Bob has agreed to do the minutes for this meeting. He does the Board of Health meeting, and he does an excellent job. So I'm very pleased, I'm very grateful that he's here.
You're here.
Are there any other updates? Okay. So committee planning, what are the next steps for us then, as a committee? We're gathering information. We need more data, so we're getting data. At what point do we say we've got enough data, now we need to act?
Well, I think a key group is to get input from folks with lived experience. So there's a plan to make a focus group at a PTO meeting, but I think we need to map out a follow-up plan. We know that Ms. Barbosa is reaching out to people in the region, but to take some other steps. And I actually had another question for you, but it may be for a colleague, and you and I have discussed on it as well. Is there a way to confidentially, have either give questions so that someone at STAR could manage a focus group of Westport residents, or provide a survey so that Westport residents with lived experience connected to another group such as STAR could answer some questions and we could learn from their experience. So I'm happy to work with someone to help follow up. I could use a teammate, but I think that is a priority to me. Are you interested as well? Or no, question?
No, I have a question. Well, I have a comment.
You're not uninterested.
I think we're learning a lot about substance use in Westport, but what I'm most ignorant of, and I think is the big problem for the committee, is finding people who will apply for funds. Because as of now, I think STAR and the police department, that's sort of the only people I can think of.
School.
On the school, I'm sorry, yeah,
The school, and I've spoke with the adjustment counselors about, they told me stuff that they wanted. I said, you got to come up with a
Okay, so that's
proposal. for
three.
it. So-
So that's three.
Yeah.
But, we really have to shake the trees to find more mechanisms or more organizations or more people who we can make aware of the availability of the funds so that they can come up with programs so that they can apply when we put out the RFP, because we're going to have to tailor the RFP. You end up tailoring the RFP to the people out there to some extent. And so I think that's the real problem.
Child and Family Services name has popped up in some of the things we've been reading.
Okay.
So that would be another one.
Yeah, but I think that's the real list we have to come up with. And then we have to craft an RFP so that we can put people together with funds. And then that would be the mechanism that we set in motion.
Well, part of the administrative costs are going to be advertising, letting community know, doing a mailing to different groups. I can think of some already established organizations like Grange that may come up with a plan.
Yeah.
The Recreation Department could come up with a plan to provide some kind of support or recreation for kids who've been impacted, or help create a family resource center. I think that once we get solid in what we're doing, that the next step is then communicating it and encouraging, even if it's talking with different groups, to say, we have this money available, here is the RFP, look at it, see if you can fill it out and request money. But I already know that we have police department. I think Glenn had something he wanted to propose as well, but I'm not sure when he wants to do that. I know the school department, so I think that, I don't think we're going to have as tough a time as you think. And I think once the word gets out that there's funding, and we could say, the part of we want to try to encourage people who actually live in or work in Westport to provide the service, not from larger groups, because our funding compared to Fall River is a lot less. They are getting much more money than we are getting, right? So if we can really try to centralize that's just my idea, into supporting what's available in Westport and helping maybe improve or increase people's access to the services. Pam, you had an idea about a camp, right, for kids who've been impacted. The one woman that was there that lost her fiance, she was pregnant at the time, so her child didn't even know her father. Is there a way to have some kind of summer thing for the kids so they can get support, they can get art therapy, all the kinds of things that would help a child? So I'm not so worried about that.
Oh, yeah, but the thing is, we can't create the camp. There has to be a camp.
Recreation department.
Yeah, we can work with
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
I mean, so I think that we have a lot of great resources, but we have to connect with them. And we may have to go out and actually campaign when we get our stuff organized, right? So I'm very optimistic. I'm a cheerleader. I'm very optimistic. I will shout from the rooftops to get people involved.
What I'm thinking is, I don't see any reason why we won't be able to find a clinician, knowing that they don't have to deal with insurance, because a lot of them, they don't take Mass Health. They won't treat anybody on Mass Health. So if they know there's money available, I don't think we're gonna have a problem finding something. They'll give us their hourly rate, probably, and we'll have to work with that.
That would be great.
That may be even somebody, a clinician in town who would want to work with the fire, with the police department.
And that's something I'd love, I'd love for the community to interview a few people to make sure it's the right fit for our community. I know we talked about the collaborative. If there's one thing I've seen since our last meeting that I attended, every community is different with where they're at with the opioid settlement funds. There are some communities that haven't done a thing yet. And I just want to make sure that we're on the same page with other communities if we're going to share a clinician.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's going to be part of the work that you would have to do beforehand to see
Sure.
how it would fit and whether it would work. Okay. And I will do that as well with the collaborative with the South Coast. I'll work with Matt on that and with Olive.
Sure, and whatever I can do to help
Yeah.
on the other end.
Good. Any other next steps? We're gathering data. We're going to streamline the stuff that we have already. We're going to look at keeping in mind this timeline that we have and seeing what we need to do between meetings. So I would ask everybody right now, what are the things you think you need to work on between now and our next meeting, which is March 18th? What do you think that we know that David's going to streamline the questions, the interview questions. What do you think you need to do, Chief?
So I'd like to contact Nikki Fontaine from FAST
Okay.
to see what they do with Star and Fall River. September's coming up quick. Last thing I'd like to see is a lapse in services for our community, so I would be more than happy to reach out to Nikki to see exactly what they do with the Fall River Police Department. And I can still stay in touch we have a monthly meeting with the Bristol Chiefs, so I'll make sure that that's still on the radar about the Sims, where we're gonna be at with that, is gonna be a shared expense with data tracking and notification. There's one thing that we, meaning myself and Detective Donovan, tried doing was, I know Lieutenant Nunes brought it up and another member of the fire department, about going with the police and the clinician to these houses to talk about whatever the fire department can help for a resource. We reached out to the COSAP grant and said, could they incur the overtime expense? And they said, no, it's just strictly for police and clinician. But maybe moving forward in the future, if we can kind of keep the fire department in mind as well, with them coming out with Detective Donovan and Officer Chicka. The only other thing I thought about was if we, at some point, want to invite Sean Verano, who oversees the COSAP grant. I believe he's a professor at Roger Williams. I think he could kind of help the committee out where, moving forward with not having this grant available to us anymore, like what can we do, maybe ideas he might have in moving forward.
Could you reach out to him
Sure.
and ask him if he would be available to be a guest speaker
Absolutely.
and to educate us as well?
I have a meeting with him on Friday, so I'll be more than happy to.
Okay, great.
And I know Nikki personally,
Okay.
and I think she did say she would like to come speak too, so I don't think that'll be a problem.
Sure. No, and I'd love to just get how she works with the police department, how that works on that side, and if there's a representative that she works with the police department, contacting that officer, detective, and just seeing how they do things.
Oh, yeah, it'll be great to contact her.
And I think to keep in mind what you project as a cost, so that we'll know how much, and it's for everyone when we do that, is like how much money are they looking at needing the support from the settlement funds, for us to make a, realistic, offer a realistic grant.
Sure.
I wouldn't mind going to some of the AA meetings in town
Okay.
and trying to get some input from people. And hopefully, I mean, I would imagine some of them are from Westport, but not all of them will be from Westport. But
Okay.
you want more input from the actual residents of Westport.
Right, that would be wonderful if you'd
I
be
can do
willing
that.
to do that, and then let them know about
Yep.
this, and if they would be willing to either answer a questionnaire, or would they be willing to have us come in and do a focus group with them?
Okay.
But,
Yeah, do that. I like homework, at least I know what I have to do.
Laura, do you have any homework that you need to do?
Sure, I have, every other week I hold a student success team meeting, so it's the guidance department, the adjustment counselors, and the building administration. So I plan to bring this up about what the school needs are and sort of delineate next steps from our end, and then I'll share that out with the committee.
Okay.
Yes.
Beautiful.
I also live in Somerset, so I'm curious, I want to do my homework on what they're doing related to a committee like this.
Okay, that would be great.
Yes.
That would be great.
I actually called Acushnet, but it was funny, I spoke to somebody from the Board of Selectmen who referred me to actually the chief of the fire department, who seems to be the one that kind of is in control of the money, maybe? Or,
I
so
would
he's
check with-
supposed to be calling me back
So
anyway.
one of the things is to check also with boards of health. So I know in the collaborative, the select board, the towns get the funds, and then the select board makes decisions about how those funds are going to be used. And I know there is one town that's in the collaborative where the select board said, here, to the Board of Health, and gave them complete control over the funding. But that's not the case with us. But yeah, I can also reach out to the other ones in the collaborative just to find out. I'll call them. And actually, Olive will know, and speak with Olive about how they're doing and how they're progressing. All right.
I was going to follow up perhaps with Stephanie Barbosa and, about connecting to people at STAR, potentially more, and maybe adapting the questions David put out, or, kind of helping develop questions focused on people with lived experience and getting your input on that as well. And then figuring out how to follow up, what the next steps are. And I wonder if in one of these exchanges, either yours or your relationship with Nikki, if we could ask Nikki to come present to one of the next meetings.
You want to do that?
I can ask her.
Okay. So that would be if, I can't remember the gentleman's name.
Sean Verano.
Sean
Verano.
and Nikki, that's two. I don't, I think
enough,
two's
right?
I
enough.
think two's great.
Yeah.
Or if we want to stagger it and have Sean come 1 month and Nikki
Well,
come next.
I think we
or-
can, yeah, I think we can do it, because our meetings are going about an hour and a half, and we're almost done with the meeting. I'm going to open it up to the people that are here. But are there any other topics that I couldn't reasonably anticipate before I posted the agenda? I have none? Okay. All right, so then I would right now like to open it up to anybody in the audience. I know Dean is here. Did you have something you wanted to share or say, Dina? You have to get up to the microphone, okay?
Step over you. Hello, Dina Dismaris. I had a few questions. I work for Stepping Stone, so I'd like to have them collaborated with STAR, because we do closely work together. I have 5 Westport residents on my client list right now. I have 35 clients total. So if I could do some of those questions with them, try to get that impact, that would be great. I also want to know about the clinician for the program that you were talking about. Is there going to be applicants for that? Because that's something that I'm interested in, and living in Westport, I would love to go out to the homes with the detectives and help them, suicide awareness, addiction. And we also have our own MAP program at Stepping Stone, and I do a grant through them, so I'm very highly motivated by the MAT services there, so.
And for those in the audience who may be watching, MAT is medication-assisted treatment, and it's using the buprenorphine and the Suboxone, which is a combination of the Narcan and
And we're doing Sublocade now, Vivitrol, and Antabuse
Okay.
for alcohol use disorder.
Okay. Can I follow up with you as well
Yes.
around your?
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to say before we adjourn the meeting?
I just want to share, Nikki just texted me and said to make sure that I mentioned that right now, they have the emergency church shelters open from now to Friday morning.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's pretty cold out there. All right. Well, if there's no other business, I would like to take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.